Netizens. I am going to try to relatively quickly watch some of Nick's games. He insists that he's tried a bunch of games with the Warden 111 TvP opening, where you scout with a SCV and then a Hellion, and you get a good idea of what the Protoss is doing, and then go from there. And I've always disliked the idea of it because with only one Rax and a reactor, you're not going to have stim or concussive shells. So, I mean, it relies on one or two bunkers, right? But I don't know. Feels like it'd be hard to deal with one of those Void Ray pushes where they warp Zealots to the high ground while they have Stalkers and Sentries on the low ground, and Void Rays floating overhead, and they get charged up before you can react. And especially on a map like this where you could go right here and do it. And also, your eventual composition is going to be a lot gas heavier, a lot high-tech unit heavier, and the Terran high-tech units just aren't very good. Like, Banshees and tanks are significantly worse than Marines. So I favor a much more mineral-heavy composition. But whatever. Warden is obviously a heck of a lot better than me, and he likes it. And Nick has been trying it, and he likes it too. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I can't fast forward significantly faster than this because I didn't pre-watch the game, and it's reading off of my hard drive, so it has to go to normal speed. Come on, hard drive, you can do it. So Nick saw, what? One gas and a cybernetics core and lots of chrono boost saved up. I don't know where that is on the sheet. Let's actually check, because it's like the whole point in this is to check stuff. Dun 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 dun. Gives me adequate cores. My god, load slower. Alright, so this is the build that Nick is trying to do, right? 150 guys are after. So supply, racks, gas, scout, marine, factory, second gas, reactor core, bunker, Hellion, scout with your Hellion, make a starport, make a supply depot, that kind of stuff. And when you get there with your first scout, you're looking for high energy, one gas. That's what he saw, right? Low energy, one gas. That's not what he saw. He didn't see two gas. So with only one gas, that means 4 gate? Interesting. I don't know about that. What if he's just really bad at spending chrono boost energy? But we'll see. We'll see if this turns out to be a 4 gate. I assume that it could also mean a 3 gate expand or a 2 gate expand, right? There's a bottom thing down here. Everything could possibly be just this, you know? But it's not until we get the 5-minute Hellion expansion or scout that we really get an idea of what's going on. So come on out, Hellion. Let's go get a 5-minute scout. You know, this isn't going to be anywhere near 5 minutes. It's going to be like a 5.5-minute Hellion scout. Starport's going up. So right now it's 5 minutes. He's got a bunker, so that's good. 3 Marines in a bunker at 5 minutes. Not bad, not bad. And here goes the Hellion scout, just like the picture he said. It was like, I am a picture, and this is what I say. I hate how choppy this is, man. Seriously. I need a faster hard drive. Alright, so let's see what Nick gets to see. So, first he's going to check for a hidden third, I guess? I don't know. Oh, I guess... Oh, okay. So he sees the expo. He sees that stuff, and he's not going to get to poke into the base. So, expansion is this. One gas, low energy. One gas, high energy expansion. Huh? Huh? That's not even one of the options. So anyway, If you see a fast expand, what's our response supposed to be? Push with a first Thor. Fast expand, push with first Thor. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it to it, baby. Let's push with our first Thor. So he's making a Banshee, and he's gonna hopefully throw down an armory, right? Because that's what this sheet says. Throw down an armory, boy. You can do it. Now, my big first question is, do I feel like this was a safe build up till this point? Because he literally has 1 Hellion, 7 Marines, and a bunker. At 7 minutes, you know, like, wouldn't he be dead if anything had hit him before that first tank popped out? And there's so many Protoss attacks that hit before that first tank. So, I don't know. Well, but now that he's seen the expansion, safety isn't really a concern, so we'll just have to wait till one of the next games and see if he turned out to be safe in a real situation, instead of just trying to guess based on this fake situation whether he would have been safe, right? Would have been safe. So this, it seems like he's expoing really late, too. Like, maybe he's not gonna expo. But where's the Thor? I don't know. Alright. So we've got some Banshees that we did not harass with. We're going to announce that we're pushing right now. Unupgraded Marines and 3 siege tanks with siege mode. Some SCVs coming behind. Our push is going to get there. This is cross position, so of course our push will get there kind of late. But yeah, 9:30. It's a pretty early push, which is great because if with an early expand, you want as early of a push as you can get. So Banshee tank, Marine, much bigger army for Nick. Much bigger. It's $900 bigger of an army. So this is kind of, I don't even know. Yeah, he tried to fast expand and get 2 fast techs. So this guy is just incompetent, and Nick auto wins. No matter what he pushed with, if he pushed it this time, he would win. Because of the upgrade and the Colossus tech, both going behind a fast expansion with 4 geysers. Yeah, and an observer. Like, all this money that's being spent on things that don't fight makes me very sad. Let's see what the range on this back tank is. Kind of feels like, okay, Colossus is out. Now we gotta focus fire the Colossus. Stupidly walked right out into us. Okay, he's dead. And Nick's coming out way ahead in all of these engagements. He's also slowly hitting the Expo. He's got his own Expo back home. Again, I don't know that I like this game as an example though, because any one base push would have killed this guy. Fast teched and fast expanded, and that's a big no-no. But this was a good one base push, right? Let's find out how big Nick's army was. Usually heavy gas compositions get you a bigger army than light gas compositions. So Nick skimped on the $500 of research that I would normally get, the 3 infantry upgrades, and instead spent that gas on actual fighting units. And that's great because his push is going to be a lot stronger, because instead of spending money on upgrades, he's spending money on units. But he's about $300 short on his army size at 10 minutes. And he had a reasonable number of workers. So yeah, I'm okay with it. This worked out okay. I mean, I don't feel like this is better in any way than just a normal Stormama, but it certainly gets you more high-tech units and less gas spent on infantry upgrades, which is good, I guess, if you don't like infantry upgrades. I do like infantry upgrades. I think Stim is like the best thing ever against Protoss, but we shall see. Squish! Alright, let's watch the next game. So that didn't answer any of my questions. My main questions are, is this safe against a 6-minute super fast 4 warp gate, and is this safe against a 6.5-minute void ray, proxy void ray push? And then other alternative questions are, is this stronger or weaker or the same strength as a normal Stamuma push? And does it give you significantly more scouting information than just suiciding a Marine? Because one of the main things about this build is this scouting information that you're supposed to be able to get by sending a Hellion. And so yeah, I would guess that in most most games, it does give you significantly more scouting information, but in that one it certainly didn't. Dun 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 dun. Din din din. So this one's labeled 4-gate, which is good because that's one of the things I wanted to see. But it kind of, there's a difference between like a 19 worker 6-minute 4-gate with 8 stalkers, or 28 worker 7-minute 4-gate with like a bunch of zealot stalker sentry. They're both strong in different ways, but I feel like the first is gonna just rip this build to shreds because Nick won't have his tank until 6.5 minutes. So it'll be like 4 Marines against 8 stalkers, And last time he scouted the high energy 1 gas, and on the sheet that's like 4-gate, get another bunker. But and Nick didn't get a bunker or anything. He just came with his Hellion, I guess. I suppose you're supposed to come with the Hellion before you decide to get the second bunker. And he had 3 extra Marines, so he could have gotten another bunker. I don't know if it would have been up in time, though. You have to start the bunker at 5:20 for it to be done by 6 minutes. So anyway, his first scout, did Nick get a first scout? It kind of feels like he didn't. Okay, he didn't. So he's making a Hellion for the second scout, but he never got the first scout. That's weird. So it was just 1-1-1. 3 Marines and then a reactor core just like last time. He saw something with this Hellion. He saw a stalker with the Hellion. So the Hellion is going to get there early enough. Come on, get up the ramp. Early enough so that it'll even the fastest possible warp gate timing push would not be fast enough that this Hellion wouldn't give you fair warning. But even if he got in there, saw 4 warp gates right now and threw down a second bunker, the bunker wouldn't be finished. Bunkers take 50 seconds to finish, so sorry I keep pausing and unpausing. So here goes the scout. He sees 3 gateways. There are 4, but he didn't see the other one. 3 gateways, 1 gas, and no expo. Wow, this is ridiculous how much this Hellion is doing. Wow. The Hellion basically just won the whole game. That's kind of ridiculous. That is so funny. 7 kills. What the hell?
This better be good.
Oh man, because obviously the Protoss had his whole army down here waiting to do this aggressive push. So Nick saw 4 warp gates in time, in time to get bunkers up, but he actually didn't build the bunkers. But in time definitely to pull workers and save that bunker. Though it looks like he's not going to. And the Hellion bought him all sorts of kills, so I do like that. I mean, obviously this is an execution problem, not a build problem. He had enough time to react and he didn't. That's okay. Wow. He's just not even gonna mind. I think that's the end. Okay, so this is, again, this is more of an example of a horrible opponent than of a good strategy, but I do like that the Hellion scouts early enough for you to see a 4 warp gate before the warping happens. That's cool, because one of my least favorite things is to have all of a sudden 8 stalkers in your base instead of getting a nice fair warning. Let's look at the next one. 3. Looks like another fast expand game. Oh, awkward. Oh, awkward. Cross positions on a big map like this. This is where a build like the 1-1-1 feels a lot safer to me. Because, big quick Hellion for scouting information, and you wouldn't be able to do anything with your army until 10 minutes anyway. So the fact that you're going to have a small army early is no longer as big of a deal as it would be with the closer positions. Alright, so his first piece of scouting information showed him 1 gas, and no Nexus energy. And that means something, right? 1 gas, low energy means a fast expand. Huh. Really? That's so weird. 1 gas, low energy means a fast expand? Why can't he just be going for a more econ 4-gate or, you know, higher econ void ray push, you know? But whatever, man. Warden knows everything, and he was right, so I'm okay with it. 1 gas, low energy means a fast expand. I gotta remember that, man. Write that down. So Nick saw the expo, I think. Nick sees the expo. Now he's gonna get his bunker up in time to stalk the stalker, and he's got his Hellion, but he's not gonna scout with it. I guess he feels like he already saw the expo. There's no need to scout. I don't know if I like that. Okay, he is gonna scout. So again, the weakness of going tech before infantry is irrelevant in a game like this where your opponent fast expands, because you know you don't really need infantry to be fast expanded. Oh, that was sexy. Hi, I just killed a $150 caster and got away. So in the 3 games, in the first game the Hellion was a total waste of $100, completely useless. In the second game it won the entire game, and in this game it more than paid for itself. So 2 out of 3, it's been good to have that first Hellion. This feels a little silly.
This better be good.
Salvaging the bunker at a point when you don't have your first 2 units. And he's making, making a medevac and a Thor. Okay, so I thought it was a tank. I was like, oh, if you come out with a tank, you're going to be pretty weak. But then he came out with a Thor, and he was like, raw, I'm a Thor, I can kill everything. So cross-position Thor push is like the absolute worst possible Thor push. Right? And I'm not saying it's bad, I'm saying there's no way it could possibly be worse. It might still be good. But, you know. When you want to see if stuff is going to work, watching it in its absolute worst case is a good indication. Because if it works in its worst case, then it'll definitely work in its best case. So he's going to pull the SCVs a little late, obviously because they run so fast that now they can catch up. And he's coming with a second Thor, still mining, still just kind of producing medevacs and Thors and Marines. Lost the medevac without killing anything. This is not looking good. Like I said, Thors take a full minute to build, and the walk distance from cross position on this map is so great. Very large walk distance that I feel like this is just gonna lose. But we'll see. We'll see, baby. We'll see. So the theory here is that your Protoss buddy is gonna have a very small army at 9 minutes because he fast expanded, right? But in reality, this is on benchmark. The Protoss has an army that's exactly as big as he would have if he was one basing. So, I don't know. Like, I mean, if a Thor push works in this case, where the Protoss unit has a big army, wouldn't it have worked against a one-basing Protoss too? I don't see why. Yeah, anyway. It's looking good, though. He's got a bunker and everything. The Expo went down. Damage done. Much better for Nick than his opponent. He's not auto-repairing. The Hellion's got 1 health, the bunker's low. Now he's auto-repairing. Alright, hey, not bad. I liked that. That was decent. That was decent, peacent, magicent, adjacent.
We could use some help here.
I don't know what he should do from here, though, because you're not going to be able to get up that ramp with Thors. They have to walk single file, and your Marines can't help, and they can't be repaired. So yeah, pick off whatever you can get over the ledges. That's good. But then you're really just gonna end up going. Nice. I like it. I like it. He could theoretically just hold this contain and expand. Or throw down 2 more containing bunkers, right? and then put like a marine here and a marine here to make sure that the Protoss doesn't sneak out of his base somehow, and then just throw down an Expo. But much safer choice is just to go home and transition into a late game. The problem is now you're giving the Protoss an expansion. He's got the over-probing problem that you get when you take an Expo and then you lose it. You get all these probes, and you're like, oh, what do I do with all those probes? I don't know. I agree that you're definitely not going to be able to push up the ramp, but do you need to let the Protoss get an expansion? That is the question. It always feels scary sitting outside someone's base when you can't see into their base, with you don't have an observer or anything, so you never know if they're going to elevator their whole army down and then walk over to your base and then kill you while force fielding their ramp. But with Thor's, he can't hold the ramp with force fields, so he either base trades or he doesn't elevator, you know, because, yeah, with Thor's there's no I'm going to drop your main and defend my main at the same time kind of threat. I don't know. Anyway. Yay for the Hellion. This is another perfect scenario for having a Hellion, right? You retreated back home and you want to see whether that expo went up, whether an army's coming, that kind of stuff. Having a Hellion is nice there too. Nice. It's because of that Hellion's death that these SCVs are here ready to repair. Looks like, I don't know. Hard to tell. Without infantry upgrades, this infantry is a lot weaker than I'm used to. And, yeah. So Nick's composition is very gas-heavy again, and I hate gas-heavy compositions against Protoss. Because infantry with stim is what really counters this immortal sentry kind of play. And Nick has no infantry and no stim. Lift that off. Oh my god. Yeah, Nick's screwed. So one of the things that makes the 1-1-1 Warden play so powerful is that what is it? Banshee unupgraded Marine Siege Tank Thor used to be a really powerful composition in TvP, like just to have all game long. But with the upgrade, the additional range on Immortals and the prevalence of mass Immortal play, Immortals just massively hard counter Siege Tanks and Thors. So the late game of Siege Tank Thor, you know, Hellion Banshee is no longer as good as it was before. So anyway, you know, I don't know, man. I guess it's hard. I've never really tried I love how StarCraft hates me. There you go, baby. You're back. You're back. Surprise, Colossus. So, just had to make sure I'm still recording. What I don't get, or even just 2 racks into Medivacs, 1 base pushing against Protoss, the stuff that I do in my TvP, it's crazy easy to do and crazy successful. So why is Nick even looking for an alternative TvP strategy? Like, why would you even try the Warden build if you already have one that's awesome? And I can get behind the idea that it's always good to have lots of different builds that are all good instead of just having one good build. But I don't know. I guess I just don't ladder nearly as much as Nick, and so I don't have the opportunity to become bored with a build that works. You know, like if you play 3 TVPs in a week, it doesn't matter if you use the same strategy all 3 times, because there's just 3. So, no energy and 1 gas. Doesn't that mean fast expand? That's what it meant last game. Come on, fast expand. Come on, fast expand. I want the Protoss to fast expand just so that I can write that down and be like, okay, if he spends all his chrono boost and he only has 1 gas, it's a fast expand. I feel like there's no way that can possibly be true, too. You know, like, especially against non-Grandmaster players who just kind of wing it and do builds at random. Get in the bunker so that it'll be up by 5 minutes. With 2 Marines in a bunker and a 3rd Marine out scouting. Or maybe he didn't. No, there's the 3rd Marine. 3 Marines and then the reactor core just like the last time. 2nd racks after the factory and starport as soon as the factory is done, as well as Hellion. Come on, starport. Bam, starport. Bam, starport. Bam, starport. Come on, you're gonna make it. You're gonna make the starport. Uh-oh, no starport. Give up. Alright, so this Hellion has been consistently late. The picture says it's a 5-minute scout. And, you know, in order to pay for itself, a Hellion needs 2 probe kills. Or at least some scouting information, or both. It's going to fail to get any scouting information. It's going to fail to get any probe kills. Seeing 2 Zealots and a Sentry at the ramp, that's encouraging, isn't it? I feel like people who are going to do an early push tend to make Stalkers. So, would you call a 6-minute expo a fast expand? I don't know. I don't know, man. It looks to me like he's just going 2-gate robo expand. This is one of the safe builds, right? 2-gate robo. It's this one. But it's 2 gas low energy. Check whether it's this, or this. And so he saw 1 gas low energy, and he came back and saw this. It's like, whoa, where's your 2nd gas, man? That's so wrong. Anyway, so let's standard play. What does it say about standard play? It says get 2 Banshees, 2 tanks, a Raven, 1 Hellion, and then start making Marines and Vikings. That's weird. Where would your gas go? I don't know. I guess it just says make everything. I've watched some Wardens replays, and I read the thread. This is all coming from a Team Liquid thread that Warden posted, by the way. And he goes for Blue Flame, or he went. This was before the Blue Flame nerf. Went for Blue Flame tank Banshee with some Ravens, and the Ravens are really kind of crucial. Because Banshees provoke Stalkers and PDD destroys Stalkers, so that kind of, there's a synergy there where if you don't make the Raven, it's like, why'd you get Banshees? I don't know. I seem to remember that if you scout standard play, this Robo Expo kind of play, you're supposed to take your own expansion and go into a more, build up a critical mass of siege tanks, and then, it doesn't seem to be what Nick's doing. He's going into Blue Flame tank. This is weird. Do you really think Hellion tank is still a valid TvP composition since they nerfed Blue Flame? I mean, first off, Hellions are bad offensively, damage-wise, against everything except for Zealots. And how do you know from this amount of scouting information whether he's going to be making a heavy Zealot composition? I feel like you don't know at all what he's doing. That's part of why making the 2 Banshees and then keep repairing them and sending them back in and repairing them and sending them back in, that's an important part of the build, so you can get an idea of what's going on. Plus, you have the Hellion anyway. Where'd the Hellion go? Scouting for whether or not he took his expansion or when he took his expansion with that Hellion seems like a no-brainer. I mean, you can just keep it right here the whole time. Move it in and out. Alright, so Nick sees ton of Zealots, some really high-end energy sentries, and some Immortals. My immediate thought when I see Immortal sentry is Ghosts, right? Because Immortals are horrible once you imp them, and sentries are horrible once you imp them. I don't love Ghost play in general, but if you're going to go onto the 3rd base, which it looks like Nick's plan is to go to the 3rd base, then definitely go for Ghosts. Not a lot of Banshees, 1 Banshee. What's this starport been doing? Like, it's been basically idle this whole time, right? I'm kind of confused by this composition in general. He's made a bunch of Hellions. Protoss is just playing defensively and counting on his econ lead that he got by expanding when Nick didn't to win the game for him. He doesn't really need to leave his base. So, Hellion run by is unlikely. Alright, and now Nick is going to come with a clearly smaller army, right? He's got a greater income, but only because Protoss is transferring workers right now. Yeah, there you go. So Nick's behind on the upgrades. The Protoss now has Colossus. At 15 minutes, of course, he's either going to have Colossus or Psystorm. Like, I don't know why this was labeled Surprise Colossus. I guess because Nick just scouted 3 minutes ago and there were no Colossus, and now all of a sudden there's 4. And the difference between no and 4 is so severe that Nick just auto-loses because he only has 2 Banshees and you need at least 8 to deal with 4 Colossus. So I kind of get that. So Nick goes over here, pokes a little bit, and sees the Colossus, and he's like, well, I'm not fast enough to run away. Which might not be true. I would have run away right then. If you see a bunch of Colossus and you have nothing that can handle Colossus, I would have loaded some Marines into a dropship and dropped on his main, and then run the rest of my army home. Hid behind the bunkers, made more bunkers maybe, and then just use this drop to keep his army from being able to push out. Because the distance between here and here on the ground, he's got to walk all the way around. And then he's going to attack. So it'll buy you enough time, hopefully, that by the time he gets there, your new bunkers will be done. And then just throw down another starport and start massing Vikings, because you're going to need some serious Viking count to deal with this many Colossus. So yeah, that game is obviously over. I feel like in every one of the games that he's lost, the Immortals have played a huge role. Like, Immortals just utterly count these mech builds. Counter. I actually looked. I wanted to find out if Warden is still doing this build. Because they nerfed Blue Flame and they buffed Immortals. It's like they specifically countered his build because it was so good. So does he still do that same build? I mean, maybe Nick's copying something from 2 patches ago that just isn't valid any longer. Anyway, this was terrible. If you give up an economic lead, like right here, 7 minutes in, Nick has no intention of expoing, and the Protoss expo is down. You either need to end this game within the next 3 minutes, or you lose, because you're behind on expos and you're not planning to expo, and, you know, you got one or the other. You either expo, or you counter, or not counter, you punish, right? And Nick didn't do either, so that's the end. He did make a command center, I guess, within a reasonable amount of time. I felt like he didn't expand, but maybe it's just because he built the command center in base and then never didn't float it down for a long time. So maybe that was okay. I mean, I know the spending on army was equivalent, but the Protoss got so many huge upgrades that I felt like he'd spent a lot more, meaning his economy was a lot bigger. Let's look at this income over here for a while. Next expo is in place at 10 minutes. And he was never really that far behind on economy. I mean, with those 4 mules, obviously, he was ahead. Yeah, actually, Nick was ahead on economy this whole time. So I'm wrong. I got the impression that the Protoss fast expanded and Nick didn't expo until 10 minutes, but really that's just because Nick built the in-base command center and then floated it down. It was there. So Nick out-econed him and then just lost on composition alone. Mass Immortal Colossus versus Siege Tanks. Yep. Yep. Alright, so let's look right before the battle happens. What's the army size? So Nick still has a bigger economy. He's had a bigger economy all game. He has 20 extra unit space. He's got a slightly smaller army, but that's very typical of TvP. 4 Marines still in this bunker, 2 bunkers still up. Not a lot of problems, not a lot of queuing, not a lot of supply block or anything. I think Nick did a really good job of making a very big army, having more money than his opponent. And if this were a valid composition, Nick would have won. So it must be that this composition is crap. Great. Great. So, only 3 siege tanks. Not enough damage nearly at all to be killing those. Colossus. The Colossus aren't even in siege tank range. One of the things Warden said in his original post was that you want your siege tanks and Vikings in one control group, and then your infantry in another, and you want to kite the dudes, the tanking stuff, the immortals and zealots and stalkers and sentries, back behind the tanks or to the tanks or whatever, so that everything would be in the range of the tanks, and then you'd focus fire one Colossus at a time with your tanks and Vikings, and in this case Banshees, I guess. So Nick, this infantry was just all immediately died. It was very sad. Immediately died. And the Ravens just kind of flew out front and died for no reason too. The PDDs were crazy effective, very good. I liked the PDDs. But even with the PDDs, Nick just massively lost this army. Those Colossus are so deadly. Just ripped all the infantry to shreds. Yeah. It was just a composition problem, baby. Just a composition problem. This, this reminds me of that custom map that we were doing where it's like a death ball practice thing where you get a bunch of, the stuff that guy had, and then the Terran gets, like 3 ghosts and a bunch of Marine Marauder and some medevacs, just 3 medevacs, not even a lot. And then a whole bunch of Vikings. And that's what Nick was really missing, was those Vikings. It's all about killing the Colossus before the end of the fight, you know? So that's why that replay was labeled Colossus Surprise, man. I don't know. So far I don't like this build, but it does seem to be doing what it promised to do, which is allowing you not to die to any early cheese. Like, the idea is that with the double scout and the lookup table, you should be able to figure out if any cheese is coming your way, from this. And then, have plenty of time to throw down more bunkers and respond to it. So here we go. Next one. I didn't read the label. So this time Nick scouted with an SCV, saw 1 gas, low energy. Again, this is fast expand. So it's been 1 gas, low energy every single time now. Except for once, when it was 1 gas, high energy. He's never seen a 2nd gas up when he arrived. I feel like it must be just that Grandmaster Protoss players get their 2nd gas a lot earlier than these guys. Or something. So we got that Hellion whose job it was to scout at 5 minutes, but instead he's going to go try to find proxy pylons. Did Nick? Could have sworn Nick scouted. Yeah, he already scouted, so why did the Hellion go over here? Must have chased the probe. I feel like with that 2nd game where the Hellion basically won the whole thing for him, a surprise Hellion has such potential to be powerful that Nick keeps sending it off and killing a 1 probe at the watchtower. I don't know. Because that probe at the watchtower is guaranteed to die on your way back, so why not go to his base first, see if you can get the scout, which is the whole point of the Hellion anyway, and then on your way back kill the probe. I haven't yet seen Nick get a good scout with this Hellion. Right? I mean, in the 1 game where the Hellion won the whole thing for him, Nick got to see the whole base. But even in the other game where the Hellion killed a sentry, Nick didn't get to see what build the guy was going. So this Hellion scout is pretty crap so far, in my opinion. It has repeatedly shown him that an army was coming in time for him to pull SCVs to repair. And that's very crucial to this type of build where you're relying on SCVs and bunkers basically to defend against whatever the Protoss is doing. But in a different build where you're just saying I'm going to have an army that's so big that no matter what I'll be able to defend, you don't need that. So the Hellion isn't buying anything that you can't get at Sears for 20% off. I think Nick's starting this factory late. Let's look. It says you're supposed to start your factory at 3:30. So right now, Nick's starting it on time. Why does the Hellion not get there at 5 minutes? So you start at 3:30, you finish at 4:30. You start the Hellion at 4:30. It's done at 5 minutes, right? 30 seconds. So yeah, it's done at 5 minutes. Okay. So what it means is that you created at 5 minutes, but it doesn't actually get to your opponent's base until like 6 minutes. So if the Hellion had come now when there's one stalker, yes, it would have gotten to scout everything. Actually, there's 2 stalkers, so even 2 stalkers could probably have killed the Hellion before it could do anything. I don't know why you're expecting to be able to see what's going on inside the opponent's base with a 5-minute Hellion scout. Like, it seems pretty typical to have at least a stalker and a sentry, or 2 stalkers or 2 zealots to just deny Hellion scout. I don't know, it's kind of bugging me, buddy. It's bugging me. So now I was going for the tank Banshee. What he saw indicated the likelihood of an expansion, but I guess he did see the expansion with the Hellion. So now he's like, okay, well, an expansion means that I'm pretty safe defensively. I don't need to build a bunker in a reasonable place or do anything. Man, this is 4-gate Expo with only 25 workers. That's so weird. Why build that Nexus? Trixie. So, one of the things right when Nick said he was doing this build, that was one of my first questions was, well, haven't you ever lost to a 4-gate or a proxy Void Ray? Because that was like, that's the most obvious weakness of this build, is like you're going unupgraded Marines and then Banshees and tanks, and both Banshees and tanks are very weak to stalkers, and unupgraded Marines are crazy weak to stalkers. Without stim or concussive shells to cause the stalkers not to be able to retreat, they can just retreat indefinitely. Like, look at that guy. He is under no threat of death. No concussive shells, no stim, nothing can possibly kill him. So yeah, it looks like this answers that question. Even with an Expo, and completely unnecessary Expo thrown down, the Protoss still had enough money to just kill you with stalkers. Straight up dead. Not enough defense. Void Ray, tech switch loss. Ooh, looks like Nick's gonna lose to Void Rays too. That's so funny. I was like, don't you lose to Void Rays and 4-gates? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, prove it. Send me some replays. And I watched the replays, and they were all of him losing to Void Rays and 4-gate. That's funny. I do now see how the Thor push makes sense. Because that guy had a big army, and the Thors still were able to knock down a Nexus. But then you're stuck with a Thor, you know? And you don't have stim nearly fast enough. Stim takes 3 minutes to get. So if you're counting on spending all your gas on Thors and Medivacs and having only 1 Rax with a reactor core, the time between transitioning from that to having stim is just, I don't even think Nick gets stim. Like, without stim, how do you deal with immortals? You don't. So this, I don't know if Nick saw, no he didn't, because this is the last place he's scouting. So he sees full of Chrono Boost, and all Chrono Boosts being dedicated to the Cyber Core, and 3 gateways. And he's like, well, obviously a 1-base attack is coming, right? So that's great. But again, that was from a Marine Scout, that wasn't the Hellion. The Hellion has never gotten him crucial scouting information, except for that one game, which was ridiculous. Where it totally won everything. Go Hellion, go Hellion, it's your birthday. Uh-huh. Okay, so now we know that Voiders are coming because we read the title, but Nick knows that some sort of gateway push is coming. He goes to make absolutely sure that this wasn't just a guy who wanted to waste a whole crap ton of economy in order to look like something scary was coming, and then really just Expo. Ooh, he gets to see the Void Ray, so this is the first time the Hellion has gotten him crucial scouting information. That's great. It got 1 kill as well, so I'd say that Hellion paid for himself. Oh, and then high ground warp up. Oh no, Nick is doomed. Look at this. 2 Void Rays against 10 Marines. And Zealots in front. I'm trying to decide before it happens, because I like to know whether Nick's doomed before he even actually fights. I feel like with so much money dedicated to bunkers that are now useless, Nick's in some serious trouble, but this army size is not very big. Protoss has a pretty small army. 7 minutes 1500 is right on benchmark, and in order to win a battle, Protoss usually has to be pretty significantly ahead of benchmark, because their units are so bad. So here we go. Luckily the guy's hitting the tank, which I think is a big mistake. He should be hitting the Marines, because Marines aren't repairable and tanks are. And then Weirdo flew away. Ooh, and the Viking is out so early. Do you see how early this Viking is out? Man, 111 gets you such a quick Viking. I love it. Okay. See, this is what I was thinking. Is like with the second warping of Zealots and these Void Rays, Nick is producing Marines 2 at a time. There is no way he's going to be able to fight these Void Rays with Marines. You know, his Marine production is just way too low. So Nick is doomed from a Marine production perspective. But what I forgot was the starport. I mean, these Vikings should be able to keep Nick pretty safe. So now it's 1 at a time of Marines. This is seriously not good. Oh, and then he lets the Void Rays get close to the Vikings. Loses all his ground. But keeps the Vikings alive. Oh, does he keep them alive? Alive. Oh, this is not going good. It's not going good. Look at Lost. Nick has done more damage than his opponent, but he's only lost 2 workers. This feels like it's not going good, but it looks statistically like it is. I guess it's because Nick has spent so much money on these tanks that are just not doing anything. Now he's going to finally lose some workers. 12, 13, 14. Yeah, that sucked. Never fight workers against Zealots, man. That is painful to watch. 14 workers dead. So with 2 bunkers and the Vikings, he was able to hold off a Void Ray push that he scouted. He knew it was coming, and he knew when it was coming. And he was barely able to survive, but he lost a crap ton of workers. I don't know. Again, I feel like a heavy Marine with stamina medevac would have been so much better in this scenario. Like, these tanks are so useless. So up till now, Nick's even on spending, but now that his worker count has dropped so low, he's gonna start falling behind. But actually, Protoss is really not taking an expo and not making any workers, so... Huh. It's weird to lose 16 workers and still be drastically ahead of your opponent on income, right? This is a crappily all-in Protoss player. So now he's gonna go for Charge Lot Archon, which is like the best freaking PVT in the world. And all these Vikings are gonna be useless. Good times. But Nick has a chance to make this irrelevant by sieging up here so that the distance between here and here will be a big long walk, but instead he sieges at the bottom of the ramp. So that the charge lots will walk right into the tanks if they come. But I don't know, Nick seems like he has this in the bag. If he does lose this, I don't know how. It's an awful lot of siege tanks though, and charge slot Archon, not really afraid of siege tanks. And that's a heck of a lot of Vikings too. 4 Vikings to deal with 1 Void Ray. No Marines, tiny Marine count. Oh, so Nick kills his entire army with friendly fire. And now it's a bunch of siege tanks against a bunch of Zealots and Archons. And Zealots and Archons destroy siege tanks. But still, I mean, Toth has a pretty small army. Oh, no, run away, don't run away. Don't do it. No, you can't kite with siege tanks. Siege tanks are slower than zealots. No! Oh well. Nick's screwed, but he still has a much bigger economy. Although he's mined out. No, he floated. Okay, that's good. 6 patches. I don't know if now is the time to float, but whatever. I feel like in all of these games, if it goes longer than about 8 minutes, the Nyx composition of Banshee, Siege Tank, unupgraded Marines is so much worse than just stimmable Marines and Medivacs, you know? Like, Siege Tanks, I don't know, Siege Tanks. I never liked you. They're a great support unit. They add range to your push, and they make it so that sentries can't use force fields to split your crap in half. And Thor should have the same role. They do a great job at reducing the effectiveness of sentries. But both of them are terrible against charge lots, and pretty darn bad against Archons, and terrible against Void Rays, and terrible against Immortals. And it's like the most common PvT units are all good against what you're making. So this crappy, horrible Protoss player has had 21 workers all game. Nyx had a consistently bigger economy. And yet somehow the Protoss, I guess, Nick has a bunch of workers he just can't use, and he lost 20 of them. 20 of them. And, yeah. That's the end of that. That's the end of that. I guess it's mean to call someone crappy who just beat Nick, because what does that say about Nick? I didn't mean crappy as in bad at StarCraft. I meant crappy as in he only made 21 workers. Oh well. I don't know, Nikki. I don't know. One of my biggest concerns... I mean, there's the big concern that you're kind of weak early, right? If he does anything at 6 minutes when you have 0 siege tanks maybe, or maybe 1 siege tank and 7 marines, how are you going to live? But then an even bigger concern is this really a good late game composition? Is this what you should be shooting for? Do you really want a whole crap ton of banshees and siege tanks? Is that good? I don't know. I feel like a whole bunch of banshees and siege tanks isn't a very good composition. And certainly a whole bunch of Vikings and siege tanks is a terrible composition. I think in Warden's post he says that he immediately throws down second and third racks after he makes his second Banshee, right?